Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertwee, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests for today. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Inspired Action. I'm your host, Kyle Pertwee, and I am here with three amazing guests today that I am lovingly referring to as the Texas Trio. We've got the state of Texas covered with these three ladies, and they're here to answer this question. How can leaders maintain meaningful connections during times of change or uncertainty? But first, let me do a quick introduction, beginning with Whitney Hooper. At the intersection of faith, business, and leadership, you'll find Whitney, the founder of Emboldened Entrepreneur and host of the Emboldened Entrepreneur podcast. Her aim is to help entrepreneurs gain traction and grow their business by combining strategy and clarity and coaching for small business leaders. We have Brooke Ludwig, Human Resource Director with over 15 years of experience in talent and organizational development, learning strategy, job architecture, leadership development, executive coaching, and performance management. She's a strategic leader skilled at developing leaders at all levels and creating scalable talent solutions, driving organizational growth. Last but not least, Melissa Armstrong, Chief Operating Officer at Endzone PrepWorks, working in the fast-paced world of e-commerce, where she and her husband, Keith, who is an Inspired Action alumni, I have to throw that in there, support Amazon buyers, sellers, and partners. I cannot wait to hear from each of you guys, so let's get started. Whitney, you won the coin toss, so you get to go first. And the question again, how can leaders maintain meaningful connections during times of change or uncertainty?
Yeah, that is so hard to distill down. But if I were to distill it into one sentence, it would be that your people are human too. So keeping in mind that they need the same trust, transparency, camaraderie, and a clear why is going to help shape the future going through the turbulency, right? I think three practical steps for that. The first would be remember that you're the thermometer as a leader. So your emotions, your level-headedness, all of that's going to regulate the entire organization. So if you're not already investing in some type of coaching or outside resource, it's really helpful. And I know that from example, or from my own experience of having somebody outside of your organization that can help speak into that is transformative. The second part of that would be check your operational health. Systems are there to support your people. And so make sure that you have standard operating procedures and your systems can scale and help you pivot, because your people are going to need to still take vacations and have family things come up, even in those trying times. So make sure your systems are working for you. And then the third thing, I already mentioned this, but the clear why. And then empower your people to do it. Delegate, let go of control. I remember having somebody tell me when I took on my first leadership gig that there's more than one right way to the best outcome. And that was a really great reminder for me that it's okay to delegate, to release that, but to give a clear why and to give them the outcome that's intended, all of that will help. And then if I can throw in a bonus, if I have enough time.
Yeah, you could.
The other thing is to build a culture of camaraderie and fun. So I had a CEO that bought everybody a Nerf gun on their first day. And so when tensions got really high and we were kind of at each other, inevitably somebody would bust out a Nerf gun and we would just have this entire war across the office. And by the end of it, everybody was laughing and tensions were down, and it just created space for us to be human and to have fun, to play, and to reset. And I think all of that comes down to happy people serve happily. So give your organizations, remember that your people are human, give them a clear why, and set up your systems to support.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the analogy of the remembering that they're the thermometer, right? Yeah. Awesome, Whitney. Thank you so much. Brooke, let's jump over to you. Same question. What would you add? How can leaders maintain meaningful connection during times of change or uncertainty?
Well, I really enjoyed hearing Whitney's answer. Fortunately, none of ours overlap. And one of the things, as I was thinking about this, Kyle, is I wanted to make the point that there are different kinds of leaders. And I believe that sometimes it's our informal leaders where our influence is a little bit greater than our title, that people are really looking to for direction. It's the person that mentored them when they started. So this really applies to people that others look up to, whether or not you're the direct report on an org chart or you're just the go-to person and the one that they're looking for that thermometer. So I think it's really important that we partner with all of our leaders and understand who has the influence as well as the position power. And I think when we think about times of change and uncertainty, it just drives our human craving for connection, stability. No one wants to be alone or feel alone when you're in this situation. So we're perfectly primed. People are hungry for the connections. I wanted to talk a little bit about, what kind of happens. And as leaders, formal, informal, I think first and foremost, be there, show up, take the call, check on people. You have to be present, accessible, and available. You don't want to abandon your people in times of uncertainty and change because people are looking for stability, camaraderie, all the things that you just said, Whitney. Another thing that I wanted to point out is in the absence of information, people love to make up a good story. So my advice is get in front of it, communicate early and often so that you have your version in addition to the competing stories. They're going to be there. Know that that's happening. Okay. Um, build trust when we're communicating. And one of the best ways to build trust is to share a couple of things: thoughts, feelings, and rationale. That's how we build trust. Be human, as Whitney just said, and be transparent. What do you know? What do you not know? And when do you expect to find out more? Right? It's not rocket science. Just be honest and transparent about that too. When we deliver messages, people want to hear it from their leader, their colleague, their partner. They don't want to hear it from another angle, somebody, who works in the cafeteria. They want to hear it from you. So share what you do know. And when it comes to rumors, they're going to be there. Embrace the rumors. I used to have a boss say, "What good rumors are y'all hearing? Let's talk about it." "Oh, I hadn't heard that one yet." And then we joke and say, "Let's start a new one." But, just embrace it. Know that they're flying around in the absence of information. And when you get questions, because a lot of times we're going to, I want to really encourage people to say, "Hey, there are some things I know and I'm not at liberty to share at this point." Typically, that's because the decision is not final and it's probably going to change, but it can really hurt trust if you say you don't know when you do know.
Yeah.
I come from defense, all right? It's perfectly okay to say, "I do know more than I'm at liberty to share at this point." As soon as I have clearance to do that, you'll be one of the first to know. And then finally, bad news does not get better with time. It does
That's
not age
absolutely.
well. So if you have bad news, deliver it kindly, but get it over with, share it before they hear it from someone else. So just a
I
couple of
love,
practical tips from a been there,
yeah.
done that I would like to encourage people to embrace in times of change because I've
Li-
found they make a huge difference.
Yeah, bad news is definitely not like a fine wine, right? I used to have a guy that we worked with that would always say, "Don't wait till the hurricane gets here to tell me it's raining," you know? So point taken. Thank you, Brooke. Let's jump over to Melissa. Melissa, how can leaders maintain meaningful connection during times of change and uncertainty? What would you add to these two ladies?
Yeah, so I think our three answers, as Brooke said, are very different. So I'm in logistics, right? So I come from a little bit of a tactical answer, right? So my reply to this question is from the perspective of a leader to their team, but it certainly applies more broadly, right? It applies to customers, colleagues, family members, and friends. I mean, this is a life lesson, not a management 101 lesson, right? It's safe to say that since 2020, like we've all lived through a crash course in navigating uncertainty, right? But that makes it more meaningful than ever for leaders to make these real human connections, like not just connect, but really relate to people. And it doesn't have to be a grand plan, right? It just has to be intentional. Obviously, in today's online world, like we all default to chats or emails because it's fast and easy, right? But that convenience, when it's used like too often, it comes at a cost, right? And what I found is that because in-person or real-time conversations are less common, they actually now carry so much more weight, right? Pick up the phone, hop on FaceTime, walk over to someone when you can. Like it really stands out. It's so rare, right? That's what makes it so powerful. I mean, of course, it's not always possible to be in person. I mean, our team is global, has been for over a decade. But what we've learned is it's the intent behind when you're reaching out that really matters, right? That distance can be bridged, when you reach out sincerely with a Zoom one-on-one or a voice note or something like that. So we try to remember birthdays, like we try to recognize global holidays that aren't on our own calendar, things like that. And if someone mentions something important during one of these check-ins, like don't check out, right? Like if they mention that they've got a sick parent or a big move coming up, like make yourself a little note, that's okay, and follow up about it, right? That's what shows that you're really listening. At the end of the day, it's not about always being available, which is an easy trap to fall into. And Kyle, that's a whole nother episode, right? But it's about genuinely being present. Like when people feel connected, we've had a lot of this over the past few years, but they're more engaged, they're more open, and they're really more likely to lean into the tough stuff with you. I mean, because you're really sending a really powerful message, like that you matter, not just what you do for me matters, you as a person. So, and honestly, as leaders, it's how we grow, right? Making space for that conversation, reflection, like goes way beyond like what's on your task list. So while technology also, I mean, it has its place for sure. It's not going anywhere. That's going to continue to increase in our lives, right? But real relationships, like they're still the foundation of strong teams and sustainable progress. It takes a little more effort, no doubt, but that effort pays off in a big way.
We were talking about the storms in Texas earlier. And so thinking about when we as leaders are going through our own personal storms, or we're, caught up experiencing stress and uncertainty, whether it's directly related to our work or it's something that's major going on in our lives, how do you guys encourage leaders to still show up authentically with their people without all of that transferring over to them? Right. So Melissa, let's just go in reverse order. If you don't mind teeing that one up, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I can say, speaking from experience, college, you well know, the past few years, we've had a lot of stress, and it is very, very easy to turn internal, right? And to really just focus on what's in your like universe at the minute. But what we had to go through when I talked about like people will really show up when times get tough. Like when times got tough, we had to actually cut back on hours, and we have relationships with people that they actually heartily agreed to go half-time and work half-time, right? No questions asked. They were like, we're in this with you. And so it was really important, and it really kind of struck me that you really have to not stay in your own world, not stay in your own universe, and really just stress about everything. You have to do that in your own time, right, and deal with that. But having those relationships prior to the challenge coming in, it's just it was just so grounding and humbling, like huge lesson learned from a leadership perspective for sure.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of the underlying culture, right? When you see those things happen, the things that you're doing are inspiring that type of behavior and that type of action, especially in the short term. And so that's fantastic. And what a great example. Brooke, Whitney, either one of you. Brooke, what do you think? What would you add?
I think one of the things that's really important is to have your own support network. Ideally I think you're tempted to go to your team, and I would say that's probably not going to work out well, but to go at least at your peer level and outside your group with someone that knows and trusts you. I don't know what it is, Kyle, but I always say my powers don't work for my problems. I can look at someone else's challenge and apply and really see it very clearly. But when it comes to my own, it's hard. So when there's someone that knows me and I'm close to, and they're like, well, I can tell you what you would tell me to do. But for some reason, there's this barrier and I can't see it. But someone outside that's not in stress mode can often help me pull through and then take that message to the team. And to what Melissa said, let them know what help from them looks like to me. What would be helpful? People typically want to help, but unless you can articulate where those gaps are and what problem you're trying to solve, it's hard for them to help in a way that's constructive. So I think, kind of get it right with a peer group outside and then deliver it in a constructive way so that people feel they can take action and show up for you and be who you need them to be in that time.
I love that. Say that again. My powers don't fit my problems. Is that how you said it?
I always say my powers don't work for me.
Don't work. Yeah.
They only work in other situations. I can't apply it as easily because I have too much floating around in my head. It's too hard to see it.
But I think that's great. It makes a great case for coaching, right? For one. And I can remember back when I was about to exit my partnership before we launched MindFit Coaching in 2009. I had been working with a coach, and part of that engagement was about going out and finding my own personal board of directors. And it was probably from an executive leadership standpoint, it was one of the greatest things I did, because I went after people that had no idea what was going on in my industry. And that gave me such a broad perspective on leadership and on how to engage people and how to do things and the challenges that I was struggling with. To invite that in, right? Because I agree with that statement. Sometimes our powers just get locked up and they don't apply anymore, even though the answer is somewhere within us. They just don't apply the same for some reason. I love that. Whitney, what would you add?
I think circling back to the prior conversation of trust and transparency, I think that piggybacks on a lot of what you guys are already saying. It's the thought that you still need your people when the turbulence is done. So keeping those relationships well-oiled, making sure that you're investing equally, not being inward focused. And I think I've been in a season where, similar to Melissa, it's just been a couple of years of just intense struggle, and trying to run a business in the midst of that is really challenging. And so I think keeping the perspective of the main thing as the main thing. What is my mission? What do I feel called to? How does this impact other people? And that gives me the grit to stay, to endure, to not give up on it when that feels like the easier option.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that as leaders, demonstrating that vulnerability and maybe showing that sometimes even when we have to embrace the suck, that we don't do it in the best ways, and seeing that's, hey, this is where I'm at today. And we're going to get through this, and we're going to do it together. And hopefully with the example that Melissa illustrated, you really see what people are made of. And that to me is there's so much power when you see true substance over form, and you see organizations that have core values and boardroom walls, and then you talk to the people and there's just no substance whatsoever. And I think that absolutely is directly related to the leadership that's involved in that. Yeah. Well, ladies, I would love to spend another, 6-8 hours, few weeks with you guys. Unfortunately, we need to call it a wrap for this session. Thank you guys so much. My Texas trio was brilliant. Give yourselves a round of applause. You guys be sure to watch us every Thursday on LinkedIn at noon Central, and on the YouTube channel at MindFit Coaching for the longer version of all of these episodes. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks for joining us. Well, that's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making with the work they do. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to watch the longer version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You'll find all of our links in the caption of this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for new episodes.